Hello, everyone, and welcome to pre-conference conference time. With everything being so strange and unusual this year, the conferences being virtual, if any of you know me, I do like to talk curriculum. I love kindergarten and I could talk about it forever. So I just want to give you some kind of basics that everyone needs to know, and it'll kind of help out at home when you're trying to help your kiddos learning and stretching them a little bit too. And then when we have our virtual conference, we can just kind of focus on your little at home and be a little more productive with that. So again, welcome, and thank you first of all for sharing your children with me. It feels like we were just doing the information night, and this I just want to kind of dig a little bit deeper and kind of refresh some of those things that we're doing in kindergarten. We are busy, we're having so much fun, and I love having them in class, so thank you so much for sharing them. And today in your folders, you should have gotten a packet that looks like this. It has the kindergarten fall conference packet. In here you will find probably way too much information, but it has everything about literacy, math, and fine motor. There are ideas and suggestions that you can do to help your child at home. So keep this. And also at the beginning of the year, I gave you an orange folder. And in that folder, we had some of the beginning of the year things. And there was a handbook in there. So if you still have that, it would be great for you to put this right inside of there, because then that will be more information for you to use. And they're just kind of tools in your pocket. If by chance we do go virtual, I don't want to do that, but then it'll be there if you're ready. And then also you'll see a little pamphlet about helping your child read. You also got a numbers. Teens are super duper tricky, and once they get a grasp on those, the other ones are so much easier. So I want you to kind of practice these at home. The 11 starts out, and I would do one page at a time. Don't overload, just kind of work on that number. Maybe have them count 11 things or something just to make a connection with that number as well. But slowly go through this. We're working on formation, and don't flip those around. We do talk about place value every day with our calendar, so they should be knowing that 10 is a 1 and a 0, and plus 1 is the tens place is a 1, and in the ones, or the tens place there's a 1, and the ones place there's a 1. And we're doing 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. So they're understanding that that tens place goes up with the tens. So kind of work on that a little bit. You will also see the end of the year goals. This is on the back side of their kind of little report card or progress report. So what you will notice is literacy, all of the things that we expect by the end of the year are on here. So you can kind of get a heads up on where we're heading. There's also math goals and social goals on there, so keep that handy. Again, that orange folder would be perfect to keep those things in. And I want to remind you about some of the math things. So just knowing that we do use 10 rods, and knowing that 10 and 3 more is 13. Knowing how to do that. We practice this a lot. You will see repetition completely. And the fun thing about kindergarten is we can use the same skills, the same thing, but if we switch it up, these are little erasers. You can get these at the dollar spot at Target. Big fun for counting. You can use those with a 10 frame. And when we use a 10 frame, you will see these coming home, like I said, a lot. We practice, 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 because what I really want them to do is know that if they have 2 in here, they can look at it backwards and forwards. 2 and 3 more, that equals 5. Or they can look at 8 and 2 more equals 10 if they're looking at filling the whole 10 frame or a 5 frame. And then moving on to the tens place and the ones place when it's a 20 frame. So doing lots of practice with that. You can do cereal, all kinds of things. Again, there's some tips in the packet for you to look at to kind of reinforce math at home. Again, games with dominoes, dice, anything that you see. You also have a yearly schedule. If you want to keep track, you can find out what letters we're working on. You can see the popcorn words. Popcorn words are extremely important. And in your packet that I sent today, you'll see a list of all the popcorn words. And we really want them to have a good grasp on the first 2 or 3 lists at least. And that in isolation becomes much harder. But when it's in books, it's a little bit easier. So we're really kind of practicing those a lot. So you will see those popcorn words popping up all over. You also have those in our newsletters. I will tell you which ones are coming up for the next time. So was our last one. Next time we're going to be working on I Can See. The kids tap and spell that. So they hold the letters or they visualize the letters and they tap S-E-E-C. So it's exactly the way they'd write it. So they start at the left and go to the right. If they're left-handed, it would be like their pencil in their left hand, and they start at their wrist. S-E-E, and then they slide C. So making sure that they're practicing that. You can have them show you how we do that at home. We also do that with so many different things. We have videos, so lots of practice with popcorn words. And if you can keep maybe a list of those or cards with the popcorn words, and then I've seen Altoid tins, you can decorate those and pop them in there so that they have them handy. Again, lots of examples in your packet to practice those. That'll be fun. I also want to talk a little bit about Writer's Workshop. We talked about pounding our words. I went to the store. And we do that because it helps them remember their sentence. Because these little guys have a lot to think about when they're writing. They have to think about what they're going to write, and then they need to think about what makes that sound, what letter is that, how do I make that letter on paper, and then what's the next sound. So it's a lot of thinking for them. So pounding makes them remember that. They can push and read. They'll show you that too. We have lots of pictures on Homeroom of us doing that too and practicing. So any writing that you can do at home is so helpful. Again, lots of tips in that packet. And in here you will also see there's some ideas. If they don't know what to write, and we always talk about adjectives too. And we ask those questions. They can add those to add length to their story. We know how to spell out color words, so add that. It makes our pictures and our writing so much more descriptive. And there's also some things that we can ask the who, what, where, when, why. What was happening? What was the weather like? Where did you go? Who were the characters? So kind of trying to question them so that they can add more details to their stories. Right now we're really focusing on getting that capital letter at the beginning, spaces between words, printing our letters as neatly as we can, and then ending with a punctuation mark too. And then adding to that story and adding supporting details to our work. Obviously starting with our picture so that we have our ideas generated. So lots of writing at home. If you can do that, that would add to the work in school. During center time, we talked about the listening center. I love this one. You'll see some of the pictures with the kids sitting at the stool and they're holding the book, and their conversations are just delightful. They talk about those pictures. They're making predictions. And then they need to draw their picture when they're done listening to the story on the iPad, and they have to think about what happened in that story. So anytime you're reading with your child at home, kind of stop and have them predict maybe, and then ask them those questions at the end of the story. What happened first? What happened in the middle or at the end of the story? How did that character's feelings change? Again, the packet is full of lots of questions to guide that, because right now this is pretty simple for them to listen to it. Again, writing is kind of hard, but they have to get a start, because next year when they're reading their books or in the years to come, they have to have that strong comprehension and be able to pick out the main ideas and write about it. So if they're just kind of kicking back, relaxing, and listening to that, then retelling that story is a really crucial step into the next years. So read with your children at home. And if you see these come home, you can always look them up on your iPad, on the computer. I just do YouTubes. If you pop the title in there, they'll come up and they'll know if that's the same story or not, because then you can kind of see what really happened in that story. And I try to write as much as I can, whatever they remember about the story, and get those details. And sometimes they're fun for you to read what they're actually saying. But also that starting to write and at least getting 1 or 2 sentences down is so important. But again, retelling is such a big step in that whole process. So that's the listening center. We also do the computer once a week when they're at the yellow center. I ask them to do Learn to Read on Starfall. It has some really nice activities, and with chunking or with letter sounds in the books, they can listen to stories, and if they can read the books, that's wonderful. If they don't know the words, they can click on them. So it's kind of a nice start to some of the technology that we use. But one of the big things that I ask with this is they have to use a mouse. They need mouse skills because next year they're going to start taking the STAR testing, and it's all on the computer. So I want them to be strong with that click on the right, and their hands are so small and it's hard for them to move. So practicing that will help with the test because I want them to know the content and not get hung up with can they use a mouse to take that test. So any practice with a mouse, I know I had to dig around to find one at my house, but if they can use this, that would also help them immensely next year. We also do a lot of CVC words, and some of you might be, what is a CVC? You'll know this. Consonant, vowel, consonant. A CVC is a consonant, vowel, consonant. We talk about consonants all the time. The vowels have 2 sounds, sometimes more, but we talk about vowel sounds and the consonants. And we make words all the time. So like for this one, each of them have their own letters at their table, and they have to make the words. So I try to get them engaged with hands-on as much as I can, and then doing the recording sheet. So they're making that sound and knowing that the vowel is in the middle. So CVCs, that's what we're doing. And at the Purple Center, we're doing guided reading. In guided reading, it's not just reading, it's getting all those fundamentals together. So we talk about rhyme. We talk about word families. So if we're reading, we can finger frame. And today we were closing one eye and holding our fingers up when we saw words on the board and using that to frame. So we use 2 fingers and we make that little part, or the chunk we call it, pop out. So this part would be an, so we can write lots of different things. If we don't know this word, we might recognize, oh yeah, that says an, and then we can stretch the rest. And can. If it's an F, we know it's and fan. So looking for little parts in those words. And like I said, rhyme, we clap the syllables, and that helps us to figure our words out too. So in guided reading in those small groups, we're clapping syllables. We're also doing it in the large group. We are looking for chunks. We're doing all those things for word work. And you will also see some things like this come home. They look a little interesting. They're very small. But here's where we're actually talking about the letter and the sound. M says but good job. Most of them already have that, but it's repetition and practice. And then what we do is we use screens. So it's called screen printing. So we press really hard with our crayons, starting at the top, making sure we're getting that formation right in those areas. And when we take it off, then we can trace with our finger, and it's all bumpy. So it kind of makes that tactile component of learning to print the letters while we're practicing the sounds. We also do finger or hole punching of the letters. We know capital M. We know what a lowercase m is, but we're hole punching, so you'll see all these little holes on the M's. That's to build our fine motor skills. Our muscles need to be strengthened so that we can write and do all those other things that we need to do. Turning pages, those are all important things that we have to know how to do. So that kind of strengthens our muscles too. And like I said, we're doing books, looking for those chunks. And when we do read, we have a strategy hand. And you will see one, it's a little different than this one. But we first look at picture clues. We get our mouth ready. What does that start with? What sound does it make? So we know that if it has a P, it's not a dog, it's a puppy and not a dog. If we see the P or D, we might look at the picture and we might be confused, but when we look at the letter, we know which sound we're going to make by getting our mouth ready. We look for those chunks. Like I said, just finger framing and making that little word pop out. So the A-N, can, making that come out so that if it's too big, if we break that down by finger framing and making that part come out, then we can figure out the rest of it, hopefully. So looking for a chunk. Going back and rereading. If we're stuck, we might be able to figure it out if we know that what might be coming next. And skipping that word and reading ahead helps us because it might give more of a clue to what that word might be. And then using all of these strategies, we have to stop and think, does it look right? Does it sound right? And then it makes sense. Does it make sense? So this is our strategy hand. And in our small groups, we're really working hard on doing these things in some pretty simple books right now. And we're soon going to be flying up through those. You're going to be excited to see how much they actually can read. So you'll see the popcorn word books, and you'll also see these ones. We're talking about the sound. We're doing a lot of highlighting, circling things. Again, looking for those chunks. IT, it. And we can get our mouths ready. It, mit, and then stretching the rest of it. The dots help us so that we're pointing and reading. We often say make it match because sometimes we might see mitten and we might be pointing to two words. So you have to make sure that when your child is reading at home that they're making that match. And if they point to the words, the more they point to a word, they're going to look at it and say, oh, that's what that word is. Oh, I know that one. So they're getting really, really good at picking out the words that they know. We know a lot of popcorn words already, so it is exciting. So again, your strategy hand is in your packet too. And I need to talk to you a little bit about Seesaw. I sent this home last week, and I have to be honest, I have a confession. I'm learning it with you. I have not used this. I've watched videos. I'm trying to get as much knowledge as I can. And of course, with everything, there are going to be glitches, but I'm kind of getting my way through it too. So I sent out one activity. It's not crucial that they do it now or whenever, but if you can just log into Seesaw, this is where we're supposed to be sending all of our work if by chance we do go virtual. So we'll kind of get used to that together. Be patient with me, please. So just make sure you've done that. And the last thing that I want to talk about is safety, COVID. It's such a weird year, and I feel horrible that it feels different for me, especially because I'm used to having the kids moving around all the time, using those counters and sharing things and getting along together. I don't think they notice the difference because they don't know any different, but they're happy, they're learning, they're growing, their conversations are delightful, they're good friends. But they're getting a little more comfortable, so social distancing is getting a little harder to control. And I've been telling them that the flu season is on us and we don't want to get sick because I don't want to go home. So if you can kind of remind them some of the safety things, who would have thought this is something in our world that we have to discuss? Wearing a mask, really? We'll look back at this and say, wow, remember when? And we survived. So again, if you can just have a little conversation, that would be great. But hopefully we can stay in school for the rest of the semester at least. And until the end of the year would be fabulous. So like I said, it's been so much fun. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I know our conferences will be super short, but the car line, if you're the lucky duck to get in the end, I'll talk to you until I chatter because it's getting cold out there. But like I said, if you ever have a question, just kind of hang out. I can talk to you out by the car because I really like those interactions of person to person. It's so much better. But email, whatever you need to do. Keep checking out Homeroom. We're having some big fun. I haven't been doing as many pictures. We've been a little crazy busy, but we'll get back onto that. So Thanks again for joining me, and I hope you have a fabulous night, and I look forward to meeting with each and every one of you for our little 15 minutes to share how wonderful your children are. So thank you for joining me.